Okay, let's take a look at how to put together the Advent calendar. Now it is quite a lengthy process, so this video is quite heavily edited, but hopefully I've covered all the key points. I'm actually starting with the doors, and basically you've got 3 panels. 2 will fit in the centres between the score lines, and the third one to the right that you saw me pointing to will butt up against the far edge. Then you will basically glue and fold over so that you've got nice strong doors. And next up we're going to take a look at the actual box itself. So you've got 2 side pieces with these dashed lines and arrow points at the end of them, and then a top and bottom piece that you will need to stick one of the panels to. There's a little arrowhead which basically points to either the top or the bottom. If you start out and you end up putting the top at the bottom or the bottom at the top, it doesn't matter, but basically it does need to be either the top or the bottom. There are also 3 dashed lines here which you might want to go over with a pencil or a pen just so they're more visible, and these will help you line up the vertical spaces or dividers. First up, I'm going to attach the sides. So I'll glue the small flap. That's on the left here, but it could be the right, depending on which you start with. And then I'm basically going to turn over the back panel and introduce that to the side edge, making sure that it lines up perfectly as possible with that dashed score line on the side panel. Rub it over with a bone folder if you want to, just to make sure that's fully stuck. And then repeat that on the other side, and then stick the bottom and top in place as well in the same way. So you'll now have this. Next up, we're going to start bringing the sides together. So I'm gluing this small tabs on the edge, and I'll bring that up to meet the opposing side or adjacent side, whichever word works. And then just hold that in place until it grabs. You can use double-sided tape for this if you want, and then you would basically go around and do all of the other corners as well. Then I'm going to apply glue to the outer large flaps and fold those in and glue them basically to themselves, if you see what I mean. This gives the box more structure and stability. Then you would do the same for the other 3, and you will end up with this, a box basically, with 3 vertical lines. Now when it comes to the spaces, you'll have an assortment, but for each of them you will need to basically apply glue to the back of one side and then fold them over and stick them to themselves. Don't glue the outside tabs, the little tabs that extend from the main section, just the inside panels. Then fold back all those little tabs, and what you will end up with is a stack of dividers. For the verticals, you'll have a 2-piece central divider and then 2 dividers that have 5 notches cut in. You'll have 3 horizontal dividers with 3 notches cut in, 2 horizontal with 2 notches cut in, and then 2 that are completely solid. We're going to make a start by gluing the first part of the central divide in place. So what we're going to do is apply glue to all but one end of the tabs. So you might see here that I've actually gone a bit wrong. You actually need to put the glued end towards the outside edge of the box. Don't worry, I do fix that in a second. And then basically you will line that up with that pencil mark that you made and make sure everything is stuck in place. On the outside edge of the box, or on the inside, you will see those little triangular notches as well. They're to help you line up the ends of these dividers, whether you're working horizontally or vertically. Next up, for one of the outside vertical dividers, again putting them on glue on all tabs apart from one end. The glued end goes towards the bottom of the box, and then everything gets stuck in place, aligning it again with the pencil mark. Same again for the remaining vertical divider. Glue on all tabs apart from one end. And again, put the glued end up against the bottom of the box. Line it up with that pencil mark. Take your time, and this is why I like to use glue for this one, just because you've got a bit of wiggle time and you can adjust things and move it around. Make sure all the bottom tabs are stuck in place. Each of these dividers, by the way, will help stabilize the box as well. And as you insert the horizontal ones, it will become much more solid. Now, we are going to need one of the horizontal dividers that's got the 3 notches cut in. We'll fold back all of those flaps, and then we're going to apply glue to all of them this time. And then we'll basically slot it in the bottom row and make sure everything's glued in place. So let's get some glue on. I hope I could work this fast in real life, but I can't. So slide that down until it's fully down, and then again using those arrowhead notches on the side of the box, you can line up the point where that joins the side. Make sure they're in place first, and then make sure the rest of it is stuck down. The next shelf or divider again is one with 3 notches in it, and you would fit that in the same way. Then again, another one with 3 notches in it, glue that in the same way. And then for the next one, we've only got 2 notches in. So let me take a moment to show you how this one works. Gluing of this particular part goes in the same way, but we also need to glue onto the tabs that it will sit onto, as you see me doing there. And then you would again just slot that down and make sure everything's stuck in place. For the next one, again we've got the 2 tabs, but this time around you've got no shelf to stick it to, so it's fine, just go ahead. For the next shelf up, we're going to draw a line that extends from the back to the front of the shelf in the center, and then we're going to stick that small vertical divider onto the shelf before we put it into the box. This way it's not super fiddly and you can get to the back of all the bits you need to. So again, apply glue to all the tabs, and then you would slot it in exactly the same way, making sure that everything lines up with all those markings on the edge, and of course making sure to glue the tabs that the shelf will sit onto. Always make sure your verticals are vertical and your horizontals are horizontal. Okay, so once you've done that, you put the last shelf in, which is one of those solid shelves, and stick it onto the top. And then you will have this. And then for your doors, basically apply glue to that outside tab. Place it onto your box so that the sides line up, and then hold it in place as that glue dries. You can obviously do as I'm doing here and open it up and make sure everything's pressed down firmly and flatly, or even turn it on its side and just press over the top. You could use double-sided tape for that part, as it will be quicker, but for a more longer lasting stick I tend to use bookbinding glue. Then we do the same for the other side. And there we have our doors in place. So next up I'll show you the drawers, and it's the same process for every single drawer. Stick the decorative panel in place, then weed all of the weeding boxes away from the numbers. Lift them up and transfer them over with transfer tape using a consistent method. So I've used the edges of the transfer tape there to help me line that up with the decorative panel. You can obviously position them where you want them to be. Just use the same consistent styling across all of it for that slightly more professional look. Now I'm basically running over all of the score lines with a fine tipped stylus and a ruler, and then I'm just basically folding all of those over and unfolding as well. Next, I'm applying glue to the edges here of those bits so that where the tabs come into contact with that card, they will in fact stick, or you could apply it to the small tabs instead, if that makes more sense for you. Glue those tabs to their opposing edges or adjacent edges, and then repeat that for the other end. So I'm working front to back here. You could work back to front. It's entirely up to you. And you might recognize this process from the box that we made earlier in this video. It's pretty much exactly the same, and it's exactly the same no matter which size drawer you're making. Finally, again, to give the drawers some structure and stability, I'm just folding in and gluing down those large tabs on the outside edges. This particular method of working, of doubling up the cardstock, actually allows me to use finer cardstock when cutting, because this then doubles over and gives you essentially 360 GSM card on the edges and sides, but 180 on the bases where you don't need that thickness. So there's some benefits to this. One is that those dashed score lines don't stand out so prominently, and it means you can have more cardstock involved. Okay, so once you've got all your drawers done, you then basically just need to fit them in your calendar. Work them in whatever way you want. The small boxes can be juggled around and in whatever numerical order you want. There are 4 specific places for the medium-sized boxes, and obviously the large box can only fit in the top slot. Once you've got that done, I would suggest maybe using some ribbon and double-sided tape to make a closure.